And we are live.
All right. This is the fun part, right?
This is the fun part. So we're going to do things a little bit different today. We are live. We are streaming on not TikTok at the moment, but Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And before we dive into things, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about upcoming events and what we have planned. So I am Heather with Head in the Clouds, and this is
Andres, a real estate agent in Alabama and host of Charla Sencilla. So excited to be here again. Another beautiful day, another amazing opportunity to be able to connect with you, Heather, and the audience that's joining us here. So this is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. And this is Real Talk, where we get into it and we really dig deep and discover what's working, what's not working, and what everybody's talking about. So, speaking of what everybody's talking about, we spent the morning mapping out what we're going to be talking about. Andres, you want to give us a little sneak peek into some of the stuff that we're going to be doing?
Absolutely. I think it's beautiful. I know we started at the beginning of the month uh, here in July. And I'll be honest, it didn't go with a lot of preparation, right? Just 2 weeks before we said, hey, we should do the podcast. We contemplated this. And a week before we said, let's go live. Let's just do it. And we've been putting this together on a week by week basis. And, um, and we're having fun. We're enjoying ourselves. And most importantly, we're bringing a lot of great content here for our audience that uh, are things that are necessary, topics that are valuable, and details that could be overlooked in many ways, and especially during a real estate transaction, right?
Definitely. I think a lot of people feel alone when they become an agent. If you're not part of a team, especially if you actually are part of a team, sometimes you still feel alone because you feel like everybody's maybe surpassing you or everybody has secrets and tools that it's working for them, but you don't know what it is. It can be, being a real estate agent can be very isolating.
It is. It definitely could be, and I'm one of those. I felt like that a little bit at the beginning because of not having not having that closeness with the team, right? Not knowing what it would take to do the business, to do the job, not preparing myself for what's ahead. So, in many instances, I felt a little bit lonely or lost, didn't know what to do. So, we want to help agents that are in that situation. At least give them a little insight into what that looks like, and also to consumers, clients on their end as well, because uh, that will tend to happen. There might not be a great communication from the agent to the client, and in every step of the way, maybe you're unsure what the next steps are or where to go. You're not sure if you're in a position to buy or not, or if it's the right moment to sell. So we want to provide you some insights into all those areas so that you can make an informed decision and be able to connect with someone that's truly there to help you. Right?
That's what it's all about. It's all about the connections and just being a good person in general. I think if you're a good person and you have good intentions, everything else kind of flows naturally the way it's supposed to go.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of it, right? This not every we talked about this last week and on Tuesday. Not every transaction is going to be the same. Not every interaction, not every client relationship is going to be the same. And uh, just navigating that, building that relationship, building that trust, and at the end of the day, is for the client's best interest. You
It is.
know.
Yep. Always
Um,
looking out for your client, making sure you're protecting them, their assets, their money.
yeah, I was at a small networking opportunity yesterday. A team of Hispanics, lenders, and realtors here in the northern Alabama part. Uh, and I'll be honest, working with the Hispanic community, um, I would say myself, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for two reasons. We are we don't listen. We are hard headed. We come into this country, we work hard, um, and we always have a sense of security, right? and we don't tend to do the things that will put us in a position to buy and be able to get to that point. And and a lot of times we have a guard up. So anybody approaches us, or if you think about providing personal information, money, we are going to have a guard up. People have a guard up, and and they don't want to allow you into that space, right? They don't want to give you access to anything. They don't want to talk about certain numbers. They don't want to talk about certain things because of so many insecurity as they move into this country, and so many challenges that they're facing. And one thing that we're talking about in the group is, once you build a trust with the families, you have many more opportunities, right? Because we tend to close and be close to one another, and we pass down referral. But it's building that trust and be able to connect with people and educate them. And what that's one of the main things in this job is being able to educate people in order for them to make an informed decision, because you want to help them out. I want to help them out. I want to help them, put them in a position not only for them to grow, but to help their family grow over the long term, right? Uh, and to do that, they got to trust you,
Yeah.
right? You got to build that relationship, and that's the first and foremost in this business. Everything else will take care of itself, and that's something that we were going over and over yesterday. And it's great to see that the group there, that's their focus, that's their mentality. Because I'll be honest, I had an experience where that wasn't the case. I had people helping me to buy a home that wasn't the case, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I've talked to a number of people, a number of agents that became a real estate agent because either of a bad experience or because of a great experience they had with an agent themselves. So, and the reason I share that is because it's so important to get to that point of building a trust relationship with your clients, and for the clients to feel like you are there for their best interest. No.
I think a lot of people throw that word trust around, and oh, trust me, or I'm looking out for your best interest, trust. And you see, how many commercials do you see where it's like, trust me, I'll do this, or my client's that. And trust is something that you don't have in somebody until they've proven that they're actually worth trusting, and you can actually trust them. It's just a word until that point. I think it's hard for people now, especially in this economy, just in this time after COVID. It's hard to trust people because most people have a very me first attitude.
It's earned. It's not just given, right? I've always believed I gotta earn your trust. I don't want you to give it to me. I need to earn it. By my actions, by my words. I'm a man of my word. If I tell you something, I'm gonna do it. Um, and I'm gonna build that over the long term of our relationship. It's not just something that uh, you throw away and you trust someone with. Would you give anybody $10,000 to go to the store? A random stranger on the street. I'm gonna trust you with $10,000. It's
Right?
not right. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. So it's something that is earned, and like you said, it gets thrown around way too much. Um, but yeah, to go back into your question, man. See how derailed I get. You asked me one simple thing. What are we gonna be talking about over the next couple of weeks? And I went into a whole spiel of things, because something that you and I just mentioned, although over the past month we talk about real estate quite a bit. I want to bring in somebody else as well to talk about their job, their industry, their journey,
Yep. I
right?
was just going to ask you that. I was going to say, we mentioned bringing on members that you're working with of the Hispanic community, and it doesn't have to be real estate related. It could be their small business that they're running. We would love to talk to them, find out about their business. If it's a product, let's have them demonstrate the product and show us what it is that they're doing, to provide wealth and like trying to create generational wealth for their family. So let's get people on here, entrepreneurs, and see what everybody's doing.
Absolutely. I think the beauty of it is we all have a journey, we all have a story, right? Uh, and I want people to share that. Something I learned a few months ago from one of the mentors in the company I work with is a lot of people connect with why you do things, not what you do. You know, they connect with your story, why you're doing what you're doing, rather than they know I sell houses, but why am I selling houses, right? So, and that struck to me because it made me reflect on the reason why I became a realtor, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and put that into paper. Uh, and I know all of us, as an entrepreneur and own a business, we all have a story on why we decided to go that route and how did we get there. So I want to open this room to share some of that stories because I know, uh, for me that's very impactful, and I'm sure that you can impact someone else that may be listening and be able to, okay, this is not, something that they had on their mind, and that could be the story, the moment that pushes them to continue to follow through, right? Because a lot of times we are the biggest obstacle in our journey. You know, we hesitate too much. We think about it too much. We prolong the process a lot more than we should have. And hearing from somebody else that could be in the same or was in that situation, could be a life changing. So I want to open the room to anyone in the industry that has a business and want to share their story, uh, to come on board, and we'll dive into some of those questions and details.
And if you're waiting for it to be perfect, it's never going to be the perfect that you want it to be. You just got to start doing it. Like, how long were we like, oh, we're going to do the podcast when it's ready, when it's ready, when it's ready. And it wasn't ready when we started, but we knew if we were waiting for it to be ready, it was
It's,
never going to be ready.
still not perfect, right? I think every week we've learned something, we've identified some areas of improvement, and that's the beauty of it, right? Uh, Always looking for ways to improve, make things a lot better, uh, a lot easier for ourselves, for our clients, bring better content. Uh, so it's never that perfect moment. And in fact, that one of my friends in Massachusetts, he's an agent over there. He was talking about, a lot of buyers tend to wait for the perfect time, you know, and we tend to wait for the perfect moment to do certain things. Uh, the perfect moment is now when you decide to do something. You know, there is no such thing as a perfect moment. You just got to do it, and you go from it. We learn a lot more from our mistakes and our errors than reading about it. So that's something that I have seen and I've heard over the past year. Many coaches, mentors, people that have success in the business, in any type of business, is you just got to do it. You learn from those mistakes, you learn from those errors, improve, try it again, and you continue on. That's the best teacher in life.
And if you're thinking, well, my business wouldn't qualify because it's not real estate related, or there's no way it could be real estate related, trust me, it can be. No matter what you're doing, we can. I feel like I don't know, Andres. Have you ever seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding? It's an older movie.
Yeah, I have.
Do you know the part where the dad is like, give me a word, any word, and I will tell you how the root of that word is Greek. And then all through the movie, they're coming up with weird words, and he's able to relate it back to the root of the word being a Greek word. I feel like that's how anything is with real estate. If you're like, well, I have a craft business and I make these like wooden sign things, and I'm like, closing gifts, because agents need closing gifts, so they could use you for closing gifts. Or if you're like, well, I have a house cleaning or office cleaning business. Okay, we need cleaners all the time for homes and commercial buildings, so we could use, there. You're like, oh, well, I'm a construction worker. We have people that build houses, so we need, construction workers, and everybody needs a handyman. If you have a house, something in it's going to break. So I say, you give me business, any business, and I can find a way. It goes back to real estate.
That is true. That is true. I think there's ways to connect them, but more ways to connect with the audience. You never know where people are at and what they're looking from, right? And so just be able to put it out there and be able to connect with an audience. Just before this, I was looking at and thinking about what is my ideal client, right? What what is my ideal client? And I had several questions that I want to answer. I'm like, okay, I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought about that. So now I got to go back and really think about, what my ideal client is. Yes, I want to help work and help everyone. Uh, but on the back end, I think every industry, every business has, okay, someone specific that you would like to work with. Is everyone going to be that? No, absolutely not. Uh, but there's someone out there that you are looking to help and be able to connect because of X, Y, and Z, right? Uh, so I was thinking of that, and I'm like, okay, I don't have that clear yet, So I need to work on that myself. So, yeah, it goes back to not just real estate. My ideal client goes back to other areas not pertaining to real estate, which I then tie them up to the real estate space. So yes, in your business, it doesn't have to be real estate. We can talk about it. Um, and our goal is to hear about it, hear your story, hear your journey, and share it with anybody. Someone will be able to connect, whether it's real estate or not. Uh, we all have a story.
And what you were talking about with, finding your ideal client, you just have to ask yourself, who is it that I want to help? What is the problem that they have that I can solve? And how am I going to solve that problem? And
Yeah,
those are the three starting questions you need to ask so that you can move forward to try to identify your ideal client or the avatar of the person that you're trying to engage with online. And speaking of that, let me bring up what we are going to talk about today, and that is, there we go, the home buying process. So we have our little game board here, Monopoly, as you like to say.
I thought
Monopoly,
of Monopoly right away. I'm like, okay, there's go.
Monopoly was banned in my house growing up. Me and my siblings couldn't wait. It got too crazy.
What? That's a fun game, man. I just for a quick reference, I remember one game that lasted for hours with my older siblings. I have at the time it was four of us, but my two oldest one it just lasted for hours. Um, I don't know. No, nobody could have give in on selling their property.
That's funny. I don't
And
know.
here I am involved in real estate, right?
We got too crazy with it at my house. So it was not something that was allowed to be played more than the first time we played it. And then my mom was like, no, no more Monopoly.
Why you guys fought too much?
Oh, yeah. I think like little houses went flying. It was just not good. But I don't even want to try it as an adult with my siblings. I feel like it'd be worse.
Right?
But let's,
Have you
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead?
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, have your kids play? Have you allowed your kids to play?
Yeah, we played Monopoly. I played Monopoly with them, and it was fine. It was good. We last year were into board games a lot. We did a lot of board games. We haven't really done it this year, so I'll have to break out some of the games again and have us start playing. Um, but no, they do. So this I keep calling it a puzzle for whatever reason, but it's a game board. It's a game board with the path of the home buying process. So each square is a step that gets you closer to the finishing line, which is the closing table. Now I know this looks really small on the screen, so I'm going to attach the link so that anybody watching or listening can download this, and then you have access to this board. You can go back and reference it. And then as well on the bottom, there are some QR codes to scan. If you want to book an appointment with Andres or you want to book an appointment with me, go ahead and schedule those there. Andres is licensed in Alabama and I am licensed in Georgia. So if you're looking to buy, sell in Alabama, that's where you can find Andres. And if you're looking to buy, sell in Georgia, that's where you can find me.
Absolutely. And some of the regulations, although they're very similar in many states, there are slightly changes state to state. But the home buying process is generally the same. Tends to look out. But yeah, those most details should be um, address with your local agents, with your local lenders to ensure everything it's in compliance with its regulations there. So yeah, today we're diving into the buyers process, and we're going to touch on a few key points. There's a few other points that we're going to have one of our lender partners dive into more specific next week, and then over the course of the next month we're going to dive into additional processes in that aspect, whether it's the title insurance. We want to get a guest in here from the title company to dive into that process, as well as home insurance. We want to dive into that process as well. We last week we had the pleasure of having a home inspector. So so we want to bring an expert in those areas to provide you a more insights, detail into what each steps is and how their point of view, right? Because we're giving our point of view, our perspective from a real estate agent, and we want to, clarify some areas for the home buyers and sellers. But we also, I think, it's important to understand those other point of view from a lender's title company, insurance company, home inspector, so that you get the full picture of what happens behind the scene of a real estate transaction.
Exactly. And I'm super excited to dive into this first topic a little more later, which is the pre-approval process. I can't talk. Pre-approval process. Let me take a drink here.
Uh,
There we go.
Absolutely.
And I know we're going to get into that with Marian and what all you need for that. But just to kind of explain it to you, if you're a first-time home buyer and you have never done this before, or even if you have bought homes before, but your agent didn't really explain the process to you, before you can start looking at homes, you need to know what your budget is. You need to know what you can afford. Like, you wouldn't go to the grocery store to buy groceries, load up your cart, and then see how much money you have. You want to know how much money you have to spend at the store. And it's the same thing for a house. You don't want to start looking at houses in a price range that you can't afford, because then nothing in your price range is going to ever compare to those houses that you were looking at before. So what you have to do is get what's called a pre-approval letter from your lender. And think of your pre-approval letter as your golden ticket. And when you're going to go house hunting, you're standing on the platform, but you're not going to get on that train without your golden ticket. And your golden ticket is your pre-approval letter. So that train ain't going nowhere until you have that pre-approval letter.
Just imagine going over to see a home, and man, you love the property. You walk through there. This is this is it. Like, Heather, I want this property. It checks all the boxes. And next thing you know, you don't qualify for that amount. You're $50,000, $100,000 short, $25,000 short on that property. You're that close, but you are not. You don't have the cash on hand, and you don't have the pre-approval for that amount. That's heartbreaking, you know, because you just came across what you've always wanted, and it's right in front of you, but you can't reach it. So I think having that pre-approval, it sets expectations, right? Clearly, this is what I'm going to be able to look, and now we can focus a home search based on what you can afford, so that we can find the right property, your dream property within that is reachable, right? That you'll be able to walk through, and in 30 so days, you have the keys and be able to say, man, I got it. You know, 'cause honestly, I've seen it happen. It's heartbreaking to go through a property. The next thing you know, I'm like, okay, I,
It is. It
I
can be
can afford it.
it can be devastating. I've met several of the clients that we have gotten in the past have been from hosting open houses. So we'll have an open house, and then people will come to that open house, and a lot of them don't have agents. So if they don't have agents, we're like, oh, well, lucky for you, I'm an agent. And then we connect them with our lender. They do their pre-approval process, and it turns out they don't qualify for the amount that home that they already toured was. And I met them at, the more expensive home. And then we're looking at other homes with them in their price range, and they're devastated because they're like, I don't even want to do this anymore. It doesn't look anything like the house that, I first saw. So it's always best to get that pre-approval, to know your budget, and then to have a comfortable budget. I always tell my buyers too, I'm like, this is, the maximum the lender says you qualify for. You don't have to spend the maximum. There's no law that says if you're, qualified for 700,000, you have to spend 700,000.
Correct. That is true. That's something I always encourage as well, because one thing is important to understand is what you get pre-approved for, and also what you're willing to pay on a monthly basis, right? So I always say, look, let's talk the numbers, connect with your lender, and that's why it's so important to have a lender you trust, that is in constant communication with you, because you can sit down with them and break down the entire monthly payment and see what you're comfortable with, right? So if you get approved for 700,000, let's say, but you're not comfortable paying that, making that payment, let's break it down. What are you comfortable with? All right, now let's look at a home based on what you're comfortable with, and let's find the dream home. Because again, you can walk through a house, you can get approved for 700,000. You can walk through a house, but you're not comfortable with the payments, then we're gonna have to take a step back. And like you said, it could be very discouraging when you walk in through a house and you're not able to get that house, and then you realize what you can afford will not get you anything like the house you want. And even if that's the case, then I tell them you don't have to necessarily buy now. Take a step back. Let's talk to the lender again. What are you comfortable making? And let's look at a property that you're going to be able to afford within the price range. And when can you make that happen? So we can take the necessary steps and put the plan in place to make that happen. Because you are pre-approved for a certain amount doesn't mean you have to jump right in and buy a house. I want to get you the right house at a price that you can afford, at a payment that you are comfortable making.
And there's a lot of things that go into the payment. You've got, if there's an HOA, you have HOA dues, you have property taxes. You've got to, when you're factoring in what you can afford monthly, you have to count those into the mortgage payment as well. And that doesn't even include utilities on this house. So if it's a bigger house, you have to pay for heating, you have to pay for air, you have to pay for trash, you have to pay for water, you have to pay for Wi-Fi. We stream everything, but if you have cable, you have to pay for cable. Then you have all the other bills that you were going to have anyways, like your car bill, your car note, your insurance for your car, homeowner. I don't know if I already said homeowners insurance, but homeowners insurance, and then cell phone bills if you have cell phones. So there's a lot to factor into. Can I afford this home?
Absolutely. I think that's another area that we can dive in with one of the lenders. The DTI, the lower DTI, the high end DTI, um, and the type of programs that they qualify for those. But it's it's a very important area for people to understand on how that plays into their mortgage.
And one thing, I know we've touched on this before with Marion, is a lot of people I'm just going to say, they get very sensitive and like almost combative about turning in the paperwork to get the loan. They don't want to do it. They're like, why do I have to turn this in? Why do they need to know that? Why do they need to know how much I make at my job? And then just a straightforward answer is because they're loaning you hundreds of thousands of dollars and they want to know that you can pay it back. So if you want the loan, you're going to have to show that you have the means to pay it back.
Oh, absolutely. Just to share some of the stories that I heard from Marian, and uh, there's this deal that she had 5 days before close. The person lost their job. You know, uh, that kills the deal right there, and is one of the reasons why they're consistently asking for documents, and making sure that everything's in line all the way through closing. Because, like you said, it's several 100,000 that they're letting you borrow, right? And just to put yourself in that position, would you just take someone's word and say, "Hey, I'm gonna pay you the $1,500 a month for $100,000 loan"? Or would you give $100,000 loan to anybody just like that, right? It's not gonna happen. Just like I said earlier, you're not just gonna give some random person $10,000. Hey, can you go deposit this at the bank? I don't know who you are, but just put this in the bank.
Right? Promise to pay me back. You promise.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. So I think we all have to take measures to ensure that uh, that you are able to get that back, that the person in front of you, that the person receiving that money is able to afford it. And at the end of the day, it's for your benefit, right? They're looking at your business, your finances, and ensuring that, okay, given all the documents, given your debt to income ratio, you're able to make that payment and you're comfortable making that payment. That's why I said there's a difference between what you can afford and how comfortable you are making a payment, because I could afford $1 million, right? But am I comfortable making that monthly payment? Hell no. So two separate things there. So you have to be able to make that, and again, uh, connect with a lender that you trust, so that you facilitate that process, you facilitate that communication. Because, like I said earlier, it's not easy, and a lot of people have a wall about sharing personal documentations, uh, personal details.
And the whole process, you have people that are like, I already turned in my paperwork. They're asking for more stuff. They keep asking for more stuff. We're closing tomorrow. Why are they still asking for more paperwork? Because that's how it is. And unfortunately, they're going to keep asking stuff until all the conditions and underwriting are met. And that's something we're going to dive into with Marianne coming up this month, is what some of those conditions are, and just about having the stuff ready, knowing ahead of time, okay, you're going to have to source this money. You're going to need to have things lined up so that you can just hand them over. Because if you want the house, you're going to have to turn in the documentation.
Yeah. Just to share a quick story, and it happened with, I was working with Marion on a deal. That deal fell apart, not for anyone's, just small details, but for the client, man, and I love her today, they're family to me now. With the client, I was in constant communications, and there was always little uh, contingency, little documents that the team needed, that underwriting sent back and requested. And every time I call the client, I always say, "Hey, everything's good. I haven't heard anything so far." I communicated consistently with her, but if a few days pass and she didn't hear from me, she will call me and say, "Hey, how's everything going?" And I'm like, "Have you noticed that every time you reach out to me, something happens? They need some more documents." And sure enough, within the day, I hear back from her going, "Hey, I'm gonna need this. I'm gonna need that." And she stopped calling me. She stopped calling me and say, "I tell you everything is good if you don't call me, but the moment you call me, you bring something is needed." And she just completely, look, to this day, she's like, "I don't even call you anymore because everything, even if we're not in the transaction,
Right? And she's like, we're
something's
not
gonna
even
come
doing
up."
a deal right now, but I called you and they asked me for some documentation.
So we were just having fun with it, but it's a lovely family, and man, it turned out every time she called me, something came up, and I'm like, see what happens. But I check with her twice a week or so, and nothing comes up. But the moment you reach out to me, something will come up, and she's like, "That's it. I know you're gonna call me certain day. I will not call you back."
That is hilarious.
So man, it was interesting. Didn't plan out at the time, but she's moving forward in the next month or two. So excited to get her back on track and help her out. And of course, that communication will be established, so nothing comes up after we get started.
This is a one-way communication only.
Seriously, that's how it's gonna be. Just like, I learned my lesson. I'm not gonna call you anytime until
Email,
we're done.
strictly email at this point.
But hey, those things come out, right? Uh, Underwriting needs more documents. Things are gonna come up, uh, and it's important to have that communication where we keep things going on a timely manner, because as we're gonna dive in with Miri and all of that next week, then we'll bring some more specific into the type of documents and the reasons behind it, so that we can clarify some of those.
Let's talk about the next step now, which after you get your pre-approval, so say you've turned in all the documents for now that they need, and you got your pre-approval, so now you know your loan amount. And let's just say your loan amount is, let's just say 350 to 400. That's your price range. 350,000 to $400,000 is a price range that you're going to be looking in for a home. So let's talk about now the next step, which is actually searching for that home, what is your first step? I know like different lawyers, real estate agents. I don't know why I said lawyers. Different real estate agents have different ways of doing things with their clients when it comes to sending them homes to look at, taking them out to look at homes. What is your process, Andres?
Well, I like to first sit down with them and identify one what they're looking for. There's on a surface level, right? Because we can say, oh, I want a 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 3 bath. I want a yard. I want open floor plan, kitchen, not too close to neighbors. Um, this type of property, 2 levels, single family, single level. I consider that the surface level needs and wants, right? But I think there's more to it because I like to sit down with them and really understand what's important for them in that property, right? Like what type of kitchen, what type of stove. I like a gas stove, you know. It may not be an important area, but for someone who likes to cook, has a family, get together, uh, gets together with the family, brings family over, likes to barbecue. There's a few things in the yard space, in the kitchen that are important for you that may be overlooked. So I like to have a clear understanding of what's important in the home search, what's important not just when they move in, but over the next 3, 5 years. What's important for them in that aspect, and what's important for their kids if they have kids, for their husband. What's important for all the family members, so that when I put a list of home on a surface level, they can tell me, okay, I like this, I like that, I like this type of property. We can take a look at that property, and then I want to walk that property with them and see what their reaction is with this a few things. Identify 3 properties, see what their reaction is, and let them figure it out. Okay, this is more important than that. This is more important than this, and then do another search and be able to pinpoint some of those key details, because it's important. This is your home. This is your home, long-term home, and you want to be able to walk in there and be happy with every aspect of the house, day in and day out, right? I will hate to see someone that say, "Okay, I jump into this house because I was only prompted or given a couple of options, and I thought this was the best one based on what I saw." That's not what I want. You know, I want to be able to go as a guest to the house a few months down the road and say, "Hey, Andres, come over for a barbecue." Hell yeah, I'm down. I'll bring some drinks. I'll cook something. you know, um, I think for me that's very important because there's a lot of details that goes into that. Um, as a Hispanic, I like to get together with my family. I like to get to run barbecues. I have to have the family over. I want a space for the kids to run. I want to be able to get together and not bother any of the neighbors or invite the neighbors over. So for me, that's important, and what I in that space. So that's my process. It's really sitting down, identifying their wants and their needs, do a surface search, see the property, see their reactions, and then identify what's really important for all of them, so that we can then do a second round of properties, uh, and and keep identifying some of those areas. And for me, it doesn't matter. We can go to 5 houses. We can go to in a day. We can go 20 houses in the process. Uh, for me, it's important identifying the right home. That's that's why I love working with buyers. I prefer working with buyers because I love that moment when you walk into a home and you say, "This is it."
Yeah.
That makes my day. That's what it's all about.
I, I I love that moment. I know exactly what you're talking about when you can just see the switch in them and they start planning where furniture is going in the house. And you're like, okay, this is the house. This is the house for you because of how you're reacting to the house. It's interesting with me. I do a lot of, so what are your non negotiables? And then what are your I can live withouts? like you were saying for the kitchens, a lot of people in the South are canners, so they need a gas stove. I didn't know that until I became a real estate agent. You can't can on an electric stove. I guess you'll break the glass top, so you need something that can handle a heavy pot, I guess, so that they can can, and you need a gas stove for that. And then getting creative. A lot of times in the real estate market, you're working with blended families, right? So you need a lot of bedrooms, and sometimes in the price range, you just don't have the amount of bedrooms you need for what you're looking for. And you kind of have to get creative with things. So there have been several times where, we'll run a list of homes and they're like, we need a 5-bedroom house. And I run the list in their price range. There's no 5-bedroom houses. And the most we're seeing are like 4-bedroom houses, but those are very far and few in that price range too. So we've gotten creative where I'm like, okay, it has 3 bedrooms. However, it has 2 rooms that could be bedrooms, but they're not bedrooms because there's not a closet, not a window, but they could still be bedrooms. You've got a bonus room. And then there's a lot of times they have that little like staircase and then the little like attic type room. A lot of houses here have those, like the above the garage room. So I'm like, so we can make it work. So sometimes being an agent means going through the list and looking at all the houses, seeing what they offer. And if it's a way to make that house work for your clients, then that's amazing. And that's your job as the agent. Your job as an agent is to find them a house, not just send them an email list and be like, okay, pick what house you want and, we'll go see it.
Yeah, sometimes you got to show them the vision, the potential of a home. For someone that just walked through it may say, okay, hold on, this, like you just said, this is a 3-bedroom. I asked for 5-bedroom. Doesn't make sense. Well, what are we doing here? Their mindset is shifted completely to seeing a 5-bedroom. And sometimes we got to show them the potential that is there in front of them. And a lot of times it's a lot at a much lower cost than what their budget or their ideal house would be at, right? So bringing down a house at 350 that you can turn into a 5-bedroom, but a 5-bedroom in that market is probably 450. This is what you could have. You could have your dream home with that. Like I said, it's very important as an agent to be able to show them the value that is in front of them. Although sometimes it doesn't appear like that when you walk into the house.
And sometimes it's talking them out of a house. I'll share a story. I think I shared this one before, maybe not on our Real Talk, but maybe just with us talking. We had a family that I believe it was both sets of in-laws were moving in with them. So they were like, I don't think they have children, but they have both sets of in-laws were moving in. So they were combining families with like elderly couples. So they're like, so we need wheelchair ramps and we can't have any stairs. We need like basically a ranch. And I'm like, okay, we can find something. We'll make it work. They sent me a 3-story house that to get in the front door, it was like these triangle type stairs to the front door. And then that was the main level. And then there was the bottom level and then there was a top level. And all through the house, it was just like staircase. And I'm like, guys,
Yeah.
this is not what you said you needed at all. They're like, oh, but it's beautiful and we like it. And they were trying to justify getting that house. So we went and we saw it. And the whole time we were there, they were talking about how much they loved it. And it was in their price range and how they could try to figure out to make it work. But logistically, it was going to be a lot and it was not going to work. And so I had to have the conversation with them. I'm like, look, guys, we work for you. If you want to put in the offer, if you want to buy this house, let's go. Let's do it. I'll write the offer. And, we'll try to get this house. But think about it, because this is not what you said you needed. You said you needed absolutely no stairs. And this is the most stairs I think I've ever freaking seen in a house. And they ended up thinking about it, considering it. I wrote the offer because they said, no, write the offer. We want you to write the offer. So I'm like, all right, I'll write the offer. I wrote the offer, sent it over to them. They didn't sign the offer. They thought about it and they were like, because I had to walk them through it. I had to be like, look, guys, so you're going to get up, you're going to get Mima, you're going to get her in the wheelchair, and then you're going to get her up this set of stairs. Well, if she's ever going to come to the kitchen, you're looking at 2 sets of stairs, and the other Mima is going to have to come down a set of stairs to go to the kitchen. So you're going to be bringing 4 people upstairs to get to the kitchen 3 times a day.
I'm tired just thinking about it.
Right? And what if we're leaving the house? What does that look like?
Yeah, you gotta have safety blankets everywhere throughout the house. If anything happens, just like at the hospitals, right? By the stairs. Yeah, that's a tough one.
And I'm just glad that they were our clients and we got them something that worked amazing. They were very happy because I know a lot of agents who would have just been like, yep, let's put in the offer. All right, you got your offer got accepted. Here's your house. And they would not have been happy there. It would have been very, very hard. And they said that afterwards. They're like, we don't know what we were thinking.
Yeah, that's uh, so important what you did there, what you said, really showing them that this is not exactly what you are asking for. This is not what you need. The house is just beautiful. Right now, it looks nice. You just want to get in there because of how it looks. But the whole thought process of living there and going through that consistently or doing the renovations, the cost of renovations to accommodate them to them and the time. When once they sat down and thought about all of that, then it made sense to them. Okay, this is not the way to go. But like you said, it's so important to be able to sit down and have those conversations because people tend to overlook that simple fact that when you're walking through a house, everything looks good. You're not in it yet, But once you get in there and you start living, that's what I said earlier. You got to think about the whole process. You being there, over the next year, 3 years, 5 years. This is where you want to be. If this your home, then let's make it happen. But if it doesn't feel like it's your home over the next year, or 2, 3 years, it's not the right place.
And you don't really know a home until you live in the home. Then you get to know the house. Then you get to know the layout if it works. So it is difficult for a lot of people to visualize things, to see the daily routine. And I always tell them too, if they're thinking about buying a house, go to the house in the morning and drive to your work. See how that traffic is from that house to your work. Because it may only look like it's a 10-minute commute, but it may be
Hmm.
a longer commute with school and with traffic. You never know. So if you're buying a house off of how long it takes you to get to work, there are ways to figure things like that out. Um, I know we're almost out of time already today. We've only gotten to the second square, but I I really love the process of finding people the homes that they want to be in. And I feel so bad for people who have experience being with an agent and the agent was just like basically a bully and like pushed them either into a house or in some cases won't even put in an offer and they're like, no, that's not what you need, and bully them out of a house. I think the mindset should always be for the agent, I work for you, I'll do what you want, but here's the advice I give you. Here's the advice. Do with it what you will, and let me know what we're gonna do. And that's seemed to work so far so good with what I've been doing.
Absolutely, and that's something I always say too. You like this particular house, this particular neighborhood. If you like it after we saw it, drive around at night, drive around different times of the day, see what you think of the neighborhood, the area, before you move forward. Because, like you said, you don't want to get into a place, and next thing you know, you're like, okay, I was not aware of this, I was not aware of that. Uh, be familiar with where you're getting into. And also, this happened to me. Just a quick, I always wanted a large yard, you know, and I don't know why, right? Yeah, I want to do barbecues, but there's a difference. Now I have a lot of grass I got to cut every multiple times a week, and I'm like, man, who told me to get a yard? This much grass. I don't need all of this. Yeah, I could have somebody do it, but for the moment I'm doing it myself. So just just food for thought.
Well, do you have a riding lawnmower or are you out there push mowing it?
With a riding one, it takes me an hour to get the whole house.
Oh my God, you do have a lot of land.
So yeah, yeah, food for thought. Think about what you want and see if that's really what you want, because I wanted a lot of yard and grass, and now I'm like, who told me to do this?
Oh, and that goes into what I said about you don't really know a house until you live it. Because
Yeah.
you weren't thinking about that. You weren't thinking about that. How is it? So here in Georgia, we have, I call them the driveway of deaths. And there's two different types. There's the type that it's like a straight down drop. And then the house is kind of like in a little gully because it's very hilly here. And then there's also the driveway of death where the driveway like ends and then the yard just kind of like is like a cliff. So like the driveway ends and then it's just like a cliff going down. And the house has a basement, but it's built into like the side of kind of, I guess, like a hill. And so if you don't stop correctly on that driveway, you're just gonna like Dukes of Hazard it over into the forest, I guess. And I
Oh,
always call
damn.
those, yeah, I always call those the driveway of death. And I tell people, okay, so on the one that is like straight down, you got to think about when it ices over. How are you going to get out of that driveway, or how are you going to get down that driveway without sliding all over the place? You're going to have to park up on the street and walk down to the house, or you just don't go anywhere when it ices over. And for the other one, you just got to be real careful, driving in, especially like at night or in the rain or something. I would like plant some plants there or put a fence up or something so that hey, don't go beyond this point. And those are things I think a lot of people don't think about until they actually get into the house. Do you guys have the whole driveways of death there?
Uh, Not of death, but some of them are inclined a little bit. I have seen a number of them, depending on the location. There's not too many mountains here. It's more of a flat land. But some developers, some builders, have a driveway that is a little bit inclined, with the rest of the yard a little bit more flat, right? Which I actually, one of my recent buyers loved the property, right? They loved the property, loved the lot, but did not put enough on the property because of the driveway. Exactly that. We're thinking long term. They're um, coming of age, right? They're thinking a couple of years ahead. They're like, okay, I won't be able to walk this driveway. The moment I get out the car, I'm gonna slide down. I'm gonna fall. Things are getting into perspective and making sense for them. Like, okay, I love the house, but this driveway is not doing it for me. So we didn't put an offer on that house because of that. Um, but yeah, for the most part, it's flat. Not too much of an incline. Depending on the developer and the area, you may have a few houses that have a more of an incline driveway, but not as bad as you're saying.
I mean, they're not all like that, but there are quite a bit here
Yeah,
that are the driveway of death. Ours is, and ours has a little bit of a slope. It does have an incline, but it's not a driveway of death. But we also have, I call them enchanted driveways. Actually, you might have one since you have a lot of land. It's where they're the long, windy driveways to get to the house. I call them the
I've
enchanted
seen
driveways. Those are pretty.
I've seen some of those, and I see somewhere it's all tree lines. You don't even see the property there in the back. I'm like, I need to get one of those. I just don't want to deal with all the grass cutting and all of that, and the trees. Because my wife actually, she wants a house surrounded by trees. I'm like, okay, at some point we will do that, but I want one by the beach actually. So we're in different angles.
That's very different. She's like, you're like, I want trees. She said, wait, no, who? She wants trees.
She,
You want beach.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna get her one with palm trees.
I was gonna say, well, if she's not gonna define the tree, do palm trees and be like, hey, you said trees, so it works.
Yep. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Cheat the system.
Yeah, exactly. So it should be good. But man, you see, we're having fun with this. We get cut. We got only to two spots in the finding home process. We can briefly touch on making an offer, um, and then as we said earlier, we're gonna dive into more specific of the home buying process and the game board that we have in place. Where we're gonna touch more on the London side,
Mhm.
all the documents pertaining to that. We want to touch more on the title, on the home insurance, home warranties is another aspect I want to touch on. Um, so we want to bring all that up over the next month and continue to play around with this game board. And we're also going to do another game board for sellers as well, right?
Yep. And we're kind of just a generic outline of what we're going to be doing. It may not be in the exact order depending on the availability of the guests that we can have to address some of these topics. But our goal is to work our way around the game board one box at a time or a couple boxes at a time and get there. And I'm super excited. I know making an offer is a whole thing in itself, and how we determine to do that with our clients. That's going to be a fun one, talking about that. I actually enjoy the process of making an offer, negotiating, the due diligence period, because there's a lot that goes into making an offer.
It does, and I think it's so important that first conversation you have with your client and setting those expectations. We're gonna dive into that during that area next week, or yeah, next week, and how that first initial conversation, setting the expectation, really diving into the needs and wants can come over to the making an offer of the property, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure we are helping our client to the max, and and a lot of times, something that I've heard before I got into real estate is the back and forth of, you got to feel like you win the offer, right? Like you feel like you win the negotiations. And something I learned over the past 2 years is, it's a transaction where there's two parties involved, the sellers and the buyer. They both have to come into a common agreement that works for both of them. Uh, and that's when you truly feel like you win the negotiation, because I'll be honest, there's some people out there that think that they're the ones handling that negotiation like it's for them, and not looking at the whole perspective from both buyers and sellers. Um, so as a real estate agent, I feel like you have to find a common ground that works for both of them, that both clients are happy, and that's when you truly, I feel like you won that negotiation, because it worked out for both. You know, whatever agreement was, uh, whatever came to an agreement, it was an agreement that worked out for both of them, whether it's closing costs, you know, uh, price, inspections, contingencies. It worked for both of them, and I think that's the point. Rather than being fixing on, I gotta win, I gotta get this lower price down, I gotta get this amount of money back. It's not always that.
I think that's a great way to put it. Everybody wins when you do it, when you're thinking about the whole picture. Everybody can win. It's got to be something that's going to be, mutually beneficial to both parties, because a seller, you don't know, it depends on what their motivations are. And I'll just quickly touch, I know we've got just a couple minutes left. When I write an offer, I call the listing agent, ask if the house is obviously still available. Again, even though we made sure it was available before we went to see it, who knows what can happen in 20 minutes in real estate. So make sure it's still available, and ask what motivates the seller. What are their motivations for selling? And is there anything we can do to make our offer stand out? And the agents don't always tell me. Sometimes they're like, submit your offer, but sometimes they do. Sometimes they'll say, and it isn't always price. It isn't always price. Sometimes they want to be out quicker, or sometimes they want to be in the house a little bit longer. So it just depends. And if you can find out those little things that are making the seller wanting to sell and put that into your offer, you have a better chance of getting your offer accepted.
Absolutely, like you said, I gotta find out what's important for them. If I'm representing the buyer, I know what's important for the buyers, what's important for the sellers, and an offer that will make this happen. Because it might not be the price point. They may need to close in 30 days. They already have another property they're buying. And something I looked at is, every seller at some point was a buyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was in my buyer's position. So what's important for them to make this deal happen? And let's make an offer to make that happen. That works for both of them. So I think this is going to be great. I think um, great stuff for us to be able to connect with others, inform our clients. Uh, Hey, maybe some real estate agents will be taking some good insight on this too, because let's face it, we all work differently, and I'm always looking into other agents and how they operate. How can I improve what I'm doing? Always continuously looking for ways to improve and be a better agent for my clients.
Yep.
Also, well. Come in, Heather. Today went by fast. What do you think?
It did go by fast. Today went by really fast. And I'm just excited. I think this is a great launching point for next week to get into offers. We can really sit down and talk about strategy when it comes to offer and how you're presenting them, what it is that sellers are looking for, and talk about this market and what kind of offers are being accepted right now. And then once your offer is it accepted, we can talk about the different contingencies there are and how to make sure all of those are met and that you don't lose track of anything and that everything runs smoothly so you can make it to the closing table.
Absolutely. And then on Thursday, I think we're going to have Marian's, so we can dive into, the pre-approval and pre-qualification. What's the difference between these two, right? Uh, and how the appraisal affects uh, that transaction from the lender's perspective, right? Because we want to bring her lender perspective, not just in the transaction wise, and also how title and escrow affects the lender on that area. And again, some of contingencies, common underwriting conditions that are brought up. We want to hear some of those common ones from the lender's aspect of things, so that we can elaborate on why they're important and why they need to be taken care of in a timely manner. So that we're expecting to do that on Thursday. And man, excited to continue to bring more content and continue to be connected with you guys.
Yep. And I think that's it for us, guys. This was Real Talk with Andres and Heather, and we will see you guys on Tuesday.
Real quick, something I wanted to share. Be on the lookout. I'm gonna bring up my first episode on charlas sencillas.
Ooh,
So it's gonna be in Spanish, and then I'm looking to have a guest over the next week so that we can record some more content in Spanish and also some lending partners in Spanish as well. So I want to bring some of this process, some of the things that we talk about here, bring that aspect in Spanish as well, so that we can connect with the audience there. So yeah, be on the lookout for the first episode, and excited to have you guys here and be able to do this. So
awesome. And we're going to have all that linked as well. I'll get the links for those and have those linked so that you guys can click on those as well.
all right, I'll see you on Tuesday.
All right. See you on Tuesday, guys. Bye.
Bye.